So here we have Carlos from King Cobra and numerous other groups and millions other records sold, to tell you the truth. Welcome to Rock Hard Greece, Carlos.
Oh, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
So let's begin with King Cobra and their new album, We Are Warriors. And then we'll have a dive in the past, as it's obvious. But first
Okay.
of all, first things first, let's talk about the new album. How did you end up working with Carmine Appice for the new King Cobra?
Well, I guess Carmine had come up with the idea to come out with a new King Cobra album, a new resurgence of the name, and he'd also worked with Paul Shortino in the past. I guess Paul had done a couple of records with him in the '80s,
Mhm.
and so they decided to work on a new record. And they had Rowan Robertson on guitar and Johnny Rod on bass, and they thought they'd call me up and see if I could do a song or two on the record. And so I ended up doing a couple songs, and I guess it worked out good that they wanted me to do the whole record. So I did all that. And this actually was not a lot of work to record, because this is one of the first records I ever, pardon me, recorded in my career where you don't have to leave the house. Everybody did their parts at home on the computer and compiled all the files together to the producer, and he put it all together. But with today's technology, you can record a record without even leaving your house, so it's kind of strange. It's a first time for me.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about that. If all of you met each other in the studio. However, as you told me, it was the first time that you used this remote working deal,
Right.
let's say. How did it feel for you? Was it comfortable recording at your house and sending a file?
It is good, easy in a way, because you can record at your own pace. And then when you record something down, you could listen to it for a day or two, and then you can change it real quick if you don't like it. You can, if you change your mind. So it lends itself good for that sort of thing. But one thing that's probably not good is there's no camaraderie with the band in the studio, because normally the whole band is in the studio, and it's like, come on, guys, let's down these beers and go cut this track and make it kick ass. And you know, all together, but nobody's there. It's you by yourself. It's kind of strange. It's different. But you make it work. Half the time I'm recording in my pajamas, because I wake up and I have my coffee and I go into the room, which the studio in my house is just a bedroom, yeah, with the Apple computer in there, and I record in there. It's not like really a studio. And for those who might not know, is I plug my guitar directly into the computer, and I use plugins, and plugins are amp models. People can use a certain sound of a Marshall or a Ampeg or a Fender, and you choose what amp model you want to use, and it's called a plugin. And so I chose my favorite plugin, but then when I'd send them my ideas, I would give them the dry signal too, so they can use their own plugin if they choose. So there's a lot of options in this type of recording. And what I do is I just lay everything I hear in the song, and anything I hear I put down, and I send it, and they use what they want to use.
Yeah. Being part of this magnificent LA scene of the 80s, I'm sure you were familiar with King Cobra's career. What did you think of them back then?
I thought they were great, brilliant musicians. They had good songs. They had that song in Iron Eagle, and they had a lot of success. They really did. And they were touring, I'm pretty sure, headlining on their own tours. And working with Carmine is great. The guy's a rock icon. He's an American national treasure of musician. And I've known him since the mid '80s, and I've never recorded a record with him before, but done a lot of live performances with him and stuff. And he's easy to work with. No drama, no attitude. He's a real nice guy. And same with Paul. I've worked with Paul on a couple of records and many shows, and both those guys are no drama. It's just, so it was a no-brainer to decide to work with them.
Yeah, and you have worked with Paul, for example, for the
Right.
QR album in Quiet Riot in 1988. How did it
right?
feel to be working with him again after all these years, even though you didn't meet each other during the recording sessions?
Well, we worked on a few projects in between the Quiet Riot record and the King
Yeah.
Cobra, just certain sessions here and there. And we did a couple of live shows with our band Rough Riot that we had going on in 2020, I think. Yeah, 2019 and 2020. But then COVID hit and kind of shut that whole thing down, and the band kind of just drifted away. But yeah, we were doing a few things since then. But it was always a pleasure to work with Paul. He's easy to work with. He's a great singer, great songwriter. A lot of stuff that I come up with, my ideas, my songs fit perfectly with what he does, and vice versa. And it was easy to work with him.
Mm-hmm. Is this King Cobra gig a steady working deal or a session work for you? How do you approach it?
Well, it's hard to say right now. Everybody's, we're in our 60s and stuff, and we're not sure if we want to tour crazy like we used to when we were young. I'm hoping that it will be a long thing. I'm hoping we'll do another record, and we're hoping to maybe go out and do a few shows, maybe some selected festivals, maybe M3 Festival, Rocklahoma, anything like that. As far as a long tour, I don't know if we would all be up to it. Everybody's got so much things going on in their lives now, and it's hard to just get away.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back in time a little bit. How cool was it to be a part of this Hearing Aid project? Almost the
Hearing
entire,
aid. Oh,
yeah, the entire Hearing Aid family, Hard and Heavy
oh yeah,
family was gathered there. Uh,
right.
do you have any funny or relatively unknown story for us of the recordings?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know how they got everybody together. They must have said, free booze and a lot of women are going to be here. Everybody came in. But
What did they offer you? Did they offer you too? Free booze and
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there was a bar there. Everybody had drinks and we had a fun time. But I had an opportunity to meet a lot of people I hadn't met before. And it was a lot of fun. Everybody got along great. And I thought everybody did really good. And the recordings went well. Of course, it was the mastermind of Ronnie James Dio and his bandmates, but they wrote the song. And Angelo Acuri engineered the whole thing. He was a great engineer. And I thought it came out really good. And it's for a worthy cause, so.
Do you think that such a thing uh, could happen nowadays?
Right, right.
Do you think that many musicians of this caliber that you gathered back then could gather for a good reason nowadays, or there's going to be this rock star thing and I don't want to see him, I don't want to play with him or stuff like that? Do you think that there can be a Hearing Aid part two?
I think there could. I think there could be, definitely. I don't think I know a lot of the heavy metalers kind of have attitudes, some of them, but when it comes to helping people, I think they're willing to help. I don't see why not.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give back sometimes. And people have helped us in our careers. We got to give back.
Yeah. In regards to the guitarists that were present in the studio, or the vocalists, anybody, who was the one that left you with the biggest impression, and why? You were so impressed by him?
Probably have to say Rob Halford or Jeff Tate. Those guys' vocal parts were amazing, and I was probably more impressed with them.
About guitar players?
Guitar players, obviously Yngwie Malmsteen was always impressive. Probably him, just Yngwie Malmsteen.
When you joined Quiet Riot, I'm sure that you were already aware of the scene shaping up in LA. But were you mentally prepared for Metal Health's commercial success? After all, it was the first heavy metal album that topped the Billboard charts.
No, we were not mentally prepared. I think all of us were blindsided by that whole success. because I would have been happy if we just sold a couple 100,000 records. I would have been happy with that, but it just took off. But I didn't. I tried not to take everything so seriously, and don't let it go to your head, because if you do, it can make you do bad things or go crazy, you know. But I'm a pretty level-headed person, so it never really went to my head, I would say. But you know, I can see how it can, you know, all the money and the power and the fame, and it can make some people change.
Yeah, did it change other people in Quiet Riot? Because you definitely earned a lot of money back then.
Of course, it probably did in some ways. It probably did, yeah. Even myself, I'm sure, changed in some ways, but hopefully, you know, it was for the better.
If I'm not wrong, if I remember well back then, even though I wasn't born and raised in the US, this album was rather slow in sales. I mean, you didn't release the album and started selling boom like that. I think that it needed some time. What was the reason? Was it the video clip shown on MTV that was starting to explode back then? What was the main reason for the success, do you think?
Well, without a doubt, you hit on MTV. Definitely MTV helped, because it exposes you to every household and exposes you to people that probably would never even look at you or watch you, and or listen to your music, and then they see you and then they like you and they end up going buying the record after all. And also the touring that we were doing, thanks to bands like ZZ Top, Loverboy, Scorpions, Black Sabbath. They all took us out on their tours, and those bands have good draws, and we got exposed to a lot of good fans, and lucked out in that way too. And then the album was a good record, and we were at the right place at the right time, and we were young and full of energy and all that made the whole thing come together, I guess.
After all these years, I'm sick and tired of Quiet Riot being called as one-hit wonder. What do you think about this?
Well, it's probably a two-hit wonder. Come on, Feel the Noise and Bang Your Head. Well, you know, it was because of the band, what happened to the band. There were certain members in the band that were bad actors. They were bad actors, and that led to, I hate to say it, but it led to a toxic work environment, which eventually led to counterproductivity, and eventually led to the dissolution of the band. And once that set in, it was like a cancer. You couldn't stop it. It was just got worse and worse as time went on, and certain people's bad behavior, you know, gave a bad taste in everybody's mouth of the band, and that led to the band going downhill. The record sales and our productivity, and all of it just dissolved.
What was the reason for doing a Slade cover back to back in two consecutive albums? Did it have to do with the success of Come On Feel the Noise, or there was something else?
Well, actually, that came about from our producer, Spencer Proffer, who was a great producer for us at the time. He really got the best out of us. He did. He managed to, you know, work our asses off and get really good stuff out of us. But he felt that Kevin sounded like Noddy Holder, which he probably did in a certain way. He had that kind of gravelly voice. So he suggested we try recording a Slade song, excuse me, and it came out really good. And after that, he wanted to record a second one. We did the second one, and then we ended up releasing Come On Feel the Noise on the first one, and obviously Mama Roll Crazy on the second album. But I thought the tracks sounded really good. I know we got a lot of flack for doing cover songs, but you know, everybody does covers. If it fits your band, why not do it? You know, it helps sell the record. It's a good story.
Yeah. When you entered Quiet Riot, you replaced Randy Rhoads. Randy was not the icon that was when he played with Ozzy Osbourne.
Right.
However, when you joined Quiet Riot went very big, and Randy Rhoads was an icon. How do you feel
Right.
about all of this? Did you speak? Did you have a relationships with Randy? And how did you see you replacing him and talking together, speaking together, even though being in different bands?
Mhm. Well, yes, I have met Randy numerous times, and um, I almost got an opportunity to play with him on stage. I was hoping he would come up and play, but he didn't want to. I remember the band I was in at the time, Snow. We went to some party in Burbank in Los Angeles, and there was a band playing at the party, and everybody was going up and sitting in and playing. And I saw Kevin and Randy walk in, and I'd known them. And I said, "Hey, you guys come on up and play." But they didn't want to play. Maybe they had a little too much to drink, or they were interested in looking at the girls or something. I don't know. They didn't come up, and I was hoping they would, but they didn't. But yeah, I did know Randy. He was a nice guy, no ego. He used to come and talk to me all the time when Snow would do shows with Quiet Riot, the band I was in before Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
And when he went with Ozzy, I remember I used to hear the songs on the radio, and I was happy for him. I thought it was great. You know, he's had that kind of success. He didn't get that kind of success with Quiet Riot at that time because I think the music they were writing, they didn't have a direction yet. They were still kind of pop maybe sounding. They didn't have that metal edge quite yet. And when Randy went with Ozzy, he all of a sudden got more darker and more heavy metal kind of like, and it worked for him, and he became a superstar. And then when I joined Quiet Riot, I brought in the song "Bang Your Head." That was my song originally, and me and Kevin vowed that we would stay heavy, you know, not try to be wimpy, and we try to base everything around "Bang Your Head" kind of style, you know, and it seemed to work for us, but you know, it didn't last long, but
was the expression "bang your head" an expression that Randy Rhoads used?
Actually, funny you should mention that. He did come up with the idea. Me and Kevin were sharing an apartment at the time, and Randy had called from Europe somewhere, I don't know where, but he was talking to Kevin, and he mentioned these kids. It must have been like 82, 81. Actually 81, because he passed away in 82. And he had mentioned these kids were banging their heads in the front row, and they're calling them headbangers. It was a brand new term at the time. And Kevin was going, "What, headbangers?" And so after he got off the phone with Randy, me and Kevin were working on "Bang Your Head" because it was originally a song that I had with my previous band called "No More Booze." And me and Kevin took the music, and I rewrote the music, and he wrote all new lyrics for it. And he goes, "I want to name this song "Bang Your Head." And I was like, "What? Bang Your Head? That's kind of didn't sound right." It goes to show what I knew. But he called the song "Bang Your Head" and wrote lyrics about headbangers rocking out at a show or whatever. And it ended up working. But that's how it came about, thanks to Randy. And actually, Randy indirectly got me the gig with the band, because he had called Kevin when they were looking for a guitar player, and he said, "You should check out this kid Carlos Cavazo. A lot of my students are talking about him, and you might want to take a peek at him." And Kevin knew who I was. We had met on the club scene, you know, when he was in his own bands and I was in Snow, my band. And they ended up calling me up, and I came down and worked out with him for a while, and it worked. So the rest is history.
Yeah, great. So you, with your previous band Snow, with Quiet Riot, you were an integral part of the first wave of these LA bands from all these places that included Troubadour, Whiskey A Go Go, Cat House, Gazares. Which one was your favorite place for you or Quiet Riot? Your favorite place to be?
To perform?
To be or perform?
Oh, probably in Hollywood, the Whiskey or the Starwood. Starwood was probably the best club. That was a good club.
Mm-hmm.
They had like the rock and roll room, and if you got tired of listening to loud rock and roll, you can go to a little restaurant area they had, and they had a disco room, and they had other rooms that were kind of quiet if you want to wind down. It was a neat club.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say Starwood.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the fact that Quiet Riot started with you on guitar, started this whole hard and heavy thing with Metal Health? And when this music skyrocketed in sales from 1986 and on, uh, Quiet Riot was not part of this scene. In fact, they were dissolving.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel regrets about anything? Do you feel that you could do something different to be part of this scene? Because I think, hypothetically speaking, that if Quiet Riot was around in 1987, 88, 89, they could have gotten huge, really huge, as they were in 1983 and 84.
I agree with that. I think if we would have stuck together longer with the original band and, you know, continued writing, one of the problems was our producers and people in the record company were trying to tell us what direction to go to and what type of songs to write. We should have just been ourselves and write the same kind of songs we wrote on the first record, and it probably would have worked out right. But with all the internal turmoil going on, you know, it just stifled all that creativity, and it wasn't to be, you know. But I agree, had we stuck together and worked out our differences instead of those guys, you know, doing, forced compliance instead of positive reinforcement, you know, it would have been much better outcome. Everybody would have been happier. But it was beyond my control.
Mm-hmm. You have played in numerous bands before and after Quiet Riot. Which is the band or the record you feel it should have got better recognition by the press and the people than it has received?
Oh, I'd have to say the Rat record. I worked with those guys for like 9 years, and it was a lot of fun. I like those guys; they were good people.
Station.
And I thought the record came out really good. I thought it could have done better than what it did, but the time that and the time that we're in right now, I guess it's just not hitting it off. But I have to say the Rat record. I like that record a lot.
The Infestation, if I'm not wrong.
Infestation, correct.
Yeah, yeah. But it's always being in the right place at the right time.
Right, exactly. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like winning the lottery. You got to be lucky, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think of these of the scene that we call hair metal in the late 80s? Which of the bands stood out and why?
Well, definitely all the bands with great records like, Guns N' Roses and Skid Row and who else? All the bands that had the good hit records, they definitely stand out. They were good bands. I don't know what else I could add to that, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of good bands, even in the 90s. There were, Cinderella was around too in the later 80s. They were a really good band. But then the 90s rolled around and it probably changed everything. But there were good bands in the 90s too, you know.
Yeah, but they weren't relevant as they were in the late 80s because this kind of music wasn't the soup of the day, as we say.
Right.
Unfortunately, for many of these bands. So I know we all know that you had a turbulent relationship with Kevin. Do you miss him? Do you have any regrets regarding your overall personal and professional relationship with him?
Well, my only regret is I wish we could have gotten him the help that he needed to stay sober. That was one thing I could say about Kevin. He was always protective of his band members. He would always protect me in situations. If he thought somebody was kind of giving me a hard time, he would come up and like, hey, he was a big guy too, kind of intimidating. But I regret that I wasn't there to help him in his time of need. But yeah, I'm sad that he passed away, and Frankie too. I would like to go back to the band, but I don't see a point now without the original members. It's not even worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I the only regret is like helping him like to get sober, and that would be the only regret. And then and sticking together longer and continue to write good material. You know?
You have been playing for many years this kind of music. You have released great records. However, I feel, personally speaking, that you haven't received all the flashlights that a guitar player of your caliber should have.
Accolades, yeah, right. I see what you mean.
Yeah, the accolades, yeah.
Right. People say I'm an underrated guitar player, but
Yeah.
I'm not underpaid. I might be underrated, but I'm not underpaid. That's good. No, but I'd rather be an underrated guitar player than an overrated guitar player, you know. So
And
I don't care about my rating. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm not in this business to get ratings. I'm in this business to be successful and earn a living. So whatever happens, I don't worry about it, you know.
Yeah,
So here's
mental health has taken care of your living.
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure. But you'd rather be overpaid than underpaid.
Yeah, of course.
It's not the kind of thing of overrated and underrated. It's
Right.
overpaid and underpaid. So nice.
And this is Elf, so the heavy metal Rottweiler.
Fantastic. Carlos, that's all with me. Thank you very much for sharing your time with Rock Art Quiz.
Thank you.